Hello and welcome to another MarketMuse content strategy webinar in our series. Today we're going to be talking about adapting content intelligence in the wake of COVID-19. And I have a special guest from Lionbridge that I'll introduce in a second. But before I do, a few housekeeping things. We have a question box on the right side on most of your screens in the GoToWebinar. Ask us anything and we'll either get to them in line or we'll answer them at the end in the Q&A section. If we don't get to any of them, we'll answer them directly via email. Also, make sure you key up to download this recording on our site. And while you're at it, check out the entire MarketMuse content strategy webinar series with visionaries like Kevin Indig from G2, Bob Apollo, Andy Crestodina, and more. And if you download more than one of those webinars, shoot me an email at jeff@marketmuse.com and I'll set up a content strategy seminar for you. And without further ado, I will introduce my guest today. She's a global SEO analyst from Lionbridge, Lisa Deignan.
Hi, how are you?
All right. Did I mess that name up?
Not at all, no, perfect. Yeah.
All right, good stuff. All right. Thank you. All right, and thank you so much for joining us. And really what we're going to talk about today is a background on Lionbridge, what your Lionbridge US blog strategy is to date. Let's, when you decided to begin working with MarketMuse and what went into that decision, all the things that went into a pilot, which was to really highlight how content optimization could drive big wins for your team and your function. Some details in that process, all the results that went into it, and how you've learned to get the most value out of the investment in MarketMuse and other artificial intelligence investments and other content optimization investments. And then we're going to get into some details of how you have adapted your processes from, or even just the decisions that you make with respect to COVID-19 and the pandemic. But first, before we get into the details of the pilot and all the things that get into it, I'd love to know more about, get some background on Lionbridge and its content team.
Sure, so just about me first, I'm Lisa. I specialize in SEO content strategy and, I work on the SEO team and work closely with the content team. And so background on Lionbridge, well, we're a content company. And we have a number of different content offerings, and we have resources in almost every market in every language. The content team, they produce great content across all of our channels, so that'd be the website, social media, email. We have 6 content creators in the US, and we also have content creators in Germany, France, Spain, and China. So as I said, I'm part of the SEO team, but I help the content team specifically with the content SEO strategy and the blog content in particular.
Gotcha. And so you described how big the team was. How much content are you producing for Lionbridge? And then how does that relate to the kind of overall big picture of what Lionbridge produces and optimizes?
Well, at a global level, we support an army of content optimizers. Then in relation to the blog, the content cadence would be, we'd aim for about 3 new articles per week. Excellent.
And yeah, I mean, the span of what Lionbridge manages from, standpoint of translation and globalization is just immense, hundreds, I can see hundreds and hundreds of thousands of content items under management, really an amazing span. So
we do everything from translation to transcreation to data-driven ideation and copywriting. So yeah, that's correct.
I know, and you get into the, your ideation for the US blog for Lionbridge, and what does that process look like?
Okay, so this is a very important process, and the main step in this is that it involves consultation with various online tools. So that could be Google Trends, Google News, SEMrush topic research, Google itself, and a number of other tools. But 2 things that we check for in conjunction with the research, and that's first, that there's significant search demand for the topic, and that we have a right to rank for the topic. And then the second one is that there is a target keyword opportunity. So that would be a live search check in order to validate that opportunity. And for topic ideation, this should actually all be completed and validated before we move ahead into the next step, which is our keyword and questions research process.
Excellent.
And we use this ideation process over multiple markets, and we have been very happy with it and its results to date.
Well, that's very cool. And that question process is really important to understand, the user intent and the types of things they might be thinking throughout whatever that, that reading journey is or that buyer journey. And so how much of, you had mentioned kind of 3 per week on creation of new content. How much existing content do you optimize in addition to that goal of that 3 per week cadence?
So we see this as really important, and we aim to optimize about 2 articles per week.
Wow, that's fantastic. Love hearing that. That is the lifeblood. It's really that tuned strategy. You're making a decision what to optimize for a particular reason with that, that plan justification. It's like, why am I doing this? Am I doing this? I'm confident it's going to grow. Love hearing that 2 per week is that cadence. I think that's really strong considering that you're launching 3 new articles per week as well. And you had mentioned when we were catching up previously that there's a big focus on voice search. Where does that come from, and why is that one of your core primary focus?
It's a good question. Well, it's really important to us, and we treat voice and text search as equal channels. Mm-hmm. So although voice only has one winner, there are fewer competitors, and competing for voice has a really positive impact on your text search results. Mm-hmm. So more importantly, Google wants answers to support voice search in all languages. So, whether voice search is to overtake text search this year, whether that's true or not, this is the way that search engines are headed. So that's why it's our big focus.
No, that's cool. Yeah, I mean, like, you're answering someone's question. You're doing what they want. I mean, that's the goal of, search in the first place. So I think if you're optimizing for voice, whether you're talking about the technical side where you're marking up the page a particular way to see if that will be successful, or you're just thinking about creative ways of giving people what they want, both of those are really great endeavors. They're all going to yield the situation that you want where you're servicing, someone who's looking for something. And I think that that's, merit enough to focus on, giving great answers, whether it be an FAQ markup, whether it be other schema, or whether it just be by providing great content that can be parsed. Cool. So just pivoting a little bit from, you described a lot of solutions and a lot of tools that you walk through to make decisions and to come up with plans. What drove the team at Lionbridge to think critically about MarketMuse, and why was that existing process kind of not enough to achieve the goals and the growth that you desired?
So it was our CMO, Jamie, who introduced us to MarketMuse, and he had a big interest in MarketMuse. And for me, our existing processes were working well enough, but really, I'm open to anything that can make our life easier in planning and building out content strategies at scale. So I guess there was 2 main things, on this slide, that 2 main things that I was looking for to check out if MarketMuse could help us. And the first was, could it make our optimization processes any more efficient and effective? I was interested in the tool's ability to help with topic comprehensiveness. Today, it's about depth of content, and that's going over and beyond in topic coverage to be that best result. And this is achievable, but it takes a lot of research. It takes reacting to insight from tools. And at the end of the day, for us, it took a lot of iterations to get right. So I just, I wanted to check out if we could get the content right the first time. Secondly, I wanted to find out if it could improve our topic cluster creation process. More specifically, could it improve the workflow?
Excellent. Oh yeah, and being able to identify related concepts, being able to identify cases where you have gaps in your existing clusters, being able to do those things in minutes instead of, as a result of a 3-month content inventory. That's always our focus too. So I'm really glad to hear that both of those initiatives were part of the evaluation. And so when you began working with, and you talked about a little bit of hub and spoke and areas of adoption that you were focused on, can you walk through some things about, where there was still a little bit of uncertainty? Where were the areas that you had internally from an adoption perspective? Did you leverage our customer success and content advisory organizations to do these things? What were the types of adoption challenges or tracking challenges that you faced, and how did you overcome those?
So yeah, two main challenges. Firstly, adoption of the tool, and it took time, it took training, and actively working through the process. So yes, I mean, actively working through the process, making mistakes, learning from the mistakes, and then moving forward. And the support team and their training materials were really helpful. Then secondly, the challenge was tracking results. So from the start, we tracked traffic, keyword rankings, featured snippets. But the challenge for me was, how do we understand the impact from a topic coverage perspective? So how do we determine the impact of using MarketMuse? And in the end, I achieved this by running a comparison between previously optimized blogs and the same blogs optimized by our new process that involved MarketMuse.
I think that that's a nuance that quite often people don't set up that level of granularity and intelligence. And the reason why oftentimes you'll look at different pages against one. So we have 100 pages, let's do 20 versus 20. But those pages are all going to have different link dynamics. They're all going to have different, competitive landscapes, intent profiles. I think getting a situation where you have done it in the past on this page and then doing it again, it's really, really a wise way to set up a pilot. Both of those situations can be successful, but I think that what you described gives you much more of a yay or nay, outcome, and I think that that's really, really smart. As far as that pilot prior to that, did you when you did those things, what can you describe the overall pilot, how and what the goals were? How did you set those KPIs? What were the dynamics of those? And and get into a little bit more details on that.
How do we set the KPIs? How do you mean? Just trying to.
You had seen the previous effort. There was there was some pages that you chose that had been previously updated. Even getting the goal of being at that 70% growth is just an amazing goal. So it's not really, I guess, how you got to it. It's just that what was the intent and what was the process like before, and how did that change with this pilot? So.
I mean, that was our success metric, and that was just something I came up with because I would see that this would bring us success if we could increase the organic traffic by that amount of percent. The pilot objectives. Yeah, I hope I've answered your question correctly. I'm not sure again.
Yeah, certainly. I think that just making sure you have an objective when you're setting up this type of.
I mean, the main objective for us was to assess MarketMuse, and then it's always important to set a KPI, something that you're going to look towards achieving, so that you can measure the success of that number one, assessing the tool. So that's really how we came up with that.
No, excellent. Yeah, and I think that taking that goal of being able to speed up the process of optimization, being more confident, improving the evaluation of your topic clusters and topic comprehensiveness. When you introduced MarketMuse to that process, how did everything change? And what were the things that you instituted with your team of optimizers so that they knew they were doing a good job? So.
How did everything change? Okay, so the best practice before, it consisted of a combination of tools and a series of manual processes. And that was what allowed us to achieve topic comprehensiveness. But the best practice then with MarketMuse, it still consists of a combination of some of these tools, but the manual effort and the number of iterations to get the content right has got much less. The value of the content has increased. So at a lower level best practice instruction, the best practice instruction consists of like low-level instructions directed to the content editor, and this remains the same. This is stuff like target keywords, the appropriate places, and instruction for the featured snippet opportunity, and that kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, this remained the same, but there was a couple of things that were changed when we brought MarketMuse into the process, and that was what we wanted to find out, whether it could work and whether it could bring results.
Now, I think that one nuance here is, oftentimes you're having to update and then wait. So, those cycles can be, weeks, it can be months in many cases, depending on the authority of the site. So the goal of wanting to get this right the first time before you hit publish is great. The goal of wanting to optimize these things and see immediate benefit. It also can be great for the morale of the team, right? Because you're actually taking a step, you're doing this work, and it has a dramatic impact. So I love hearing that, the goal was to reduce the amount of editing cycles, reduce the amount of optimization cycles as well. I think that's really important. So
that's exactly it. Yeah.
Cool. So let's get into a little bit of the details of the results. I think what we will, obviously traffic data, but also you're really focused on featured snippets. Can you get into all the details of what you saw, time frame, and a little bit more details about those 20 posts and the impact to them, and maybe some other pages in your network or in your site?
Sure. So I mean, for the 20 blog posts, we surpassed our goal of 70%. We really increased our organic traffic. We got 31 new featured snippets and 70 new keywords in the top 3 results. So yeah, really happy with that. And also then in the last 2 months, we've doubled our daily conversions. So that would be specific to the 20 blog posts. Then there was a noticeable uplift in traffic and leads associated with the pages that we linked to from the blog posts. So, I mean, one example that I remember was we have one particular blog post, it's 5 tips for choosing a phone interpreter. And the link to our services page resulted in organic traffic for that page up 400%, direct traffic up as well, and leads were up 100%. So this is just one example. There were many other really great examples. And this for me was one of the most fascinating things when I was working on the pilot. So it really proved to me the power of internal linking from a high-performing page.
Yeah.
So we began to pay more and more attention to getting the right internal links there, the right anchor text there, due to the great value of that.
Wonderful. And yeah, I mean, we have a solution Connect inside MarketMuse Suite that gives advisory as to how to amp up that cluster coverage. But the example you give is great because it highlights that all boats rise. When you're writing great content, when you're thinking about clusters, you don't necessarily know all the pages that are going to be impacted. But if you're providing more answers and more, things across the buy cycle, things across the purchase journey, whatever the case may be, the types of site, you're going to see that flow throughout, like you mentioned, the internal links. I'm just seeing that tripling your keyword coverage for the pages optimized too, that's going to open up doors for new topics and for new words and keywords for you to write in the future too. So maybe you achieved a second or third page ranking on a keyword you weren't even targeting. Well, now that's going to be a great opportunity for you to write content in the future too. So I think that all boats rise takeaway, the growth in pages that were linked, conversion rate growth, all really dramatic wins. I love hearing all those.
So, I mean, this was coming back to the challenge. So that challenge, one of our challenges was how do we understand the impact of MarketMuse and the impact from a topic coverage perspective. So this was what really, it wasn't, I mean, these results were great, but it was this part that did it. So on this, based on this analysis, we could see that the pilot allowed us to triple our keyword coverage and traffic. And so we're ranking for so many more keywords, related keywords, synonyms, and it was really clear from this that we had way better topic coverage.
During this process of evaluating the results, did you go back and re-optimize even more, or were there some steps that you took that you wouldn't have expected to take?
So do you mean, did we go back to any of the 20 pages and put them through the process again?
Where new pages come into the scene and you have those queued up for the future? What's gone in the future? What are you looking at for the future for these types of pages or this process? What
am I looking at for the future? So you're talking outside of the pilot, is it? Or
did you go back to re-optimize any of these pages?
Sure. Okay. There was just one that we went back to re-optimize, and that was purely because there was more opportunity from a featured snippet perspective. So no, mostly we only ran through the process once for most of the URLs.
Gotcha, cool. Yeah, there's some really great research out there since there's been a major change in the way that Google handles featured snippets. So right now, having a featured snippet eliminates your opportunity of being in the main results, whereas before you could have two results. There's some majorly great research out there that's just been published. So we'll put a link in the replay or in the show notes here. To make sure that folks can stay up to date, because there's a lot of changes happening in featured snippets. So I think that's really great that you saw that opportunity with a featured snippet and then made it in another adjustment. So just talking about the overall the business goals, why was content, why was thinking about user intent, why were those things so important to this and future tests, and what are you thinking about for efficiency gains that you might not have been able to do before?
When it comes to business goals and content, the purpose of your content is to achieve your business goals. And so we found that a strong partnership with the business was the only way to succeed. And that means aligning your content strategy with your business goals. So Sandra, our business partner, she attends all of our MarketMuse trainings and works closely with us on this. So she's really hands-on. Yeah, so that was in relation to the business goal. Was there another part of the question that I'm?
Yeah, I think that's really important. I was talk about user intent and the intent behind the content, but I think it's very important. One thing we say a lot is you have to have a culture of content. I mean, no one has more of a culture of content than Lionbridge, obviously, because you're managing such a massive scale. But having your business partner, having the decision maker, for the technology purchases, having that, the leadership understand the goals of these efforts. I think it's a nuance. I think a lot of times teams will drop this on the SEO person, and they're the only point of contact, and then they have to report up the impact, and there's just a lot of communication breakdown. So I think that as you described it, making sure that business partner, making sure that everybody understands the the goals of the content. I think all of those things.
That all ties obviously into your search intent and getting that right, because it's critical to understand the search intent. And if you get the search intent in any way wrong when you're optimizing content, it will not do well at all. So
yeah, that's for sure. Or else it'll only do well for a while, and then competitors will swoop in and beat you up for sure. So the other thing I was going to mention too is also like you having the awareness, and the relationship with that business partner probably helps you align to the goals of the business. And
it helped a lot. It made a big difference, and I think it's really important point actually. Or we should be on the slide.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think it's something that, frankly, we should start every discussion, with. It's to say, like, is the team all on the same page as to content? Because, having to overcome that in the same time frame as you're adopting a new process, adopting a new collection of marketing technology can be really challenged. I mean, the equivalent to, if you're adopting a new lead scoring methodology, but people don't even, they don't even know anything about the first one. You've got to get everybody in the bus, or at least close to the bus, to be behind any sort of study or research. So I love that. So you walked through a couple of the team roles, and you also talked about the time frame for the test and the ways that you taught folks on the team what to think about and how to do it. So can you walk through kind of the different roles on the team and how that all works together with this, and how that's led to you having a shorter than you expected learning curve?
Okay, so, well, there's the content strategist. There is a need for a good content editor, and then, as I said, the good business person. In relation to the training curve, for the content editor, it's quite straightforward. And in fact, she found it fun. She loved learning from the tool. So I would say you could, that would be very quick. It would be, it's more of an effort for the content strategist. So I think it takes more time. I mean, it's worth the time, but you do have to put in that initial time to really understand. So I mean, all of these roles are critically important in working together and to getting the right system in place and the right results then at the end.
No, as a kid, just your observation there really illustrates that you're there, right? Because it is that it's the process of touching content and editing content is going to be very instinctive and new and simple to clear, and we try to make it gamified in some way, so it's you're achieving a particular score and targets, which can, like you mentioned, when that is successful, it's great, right? From a strategy side, like you mentioned, it can be it's a nuance, because you're using data to make decisions, and you're using data to make decisions that in a different way. So getting there certainly can have a little bit of a different path, or a slightly longer path. It's something that, I mean, always on.
Just going back to the last question, I just want to add to that in adding MarketMuse to our process, I think that there is more work perhaps upfront for the writer when she's optimizing for MarketMuse, because with the optimized tool, it's more thorough, but at the end of the day, like, we had to do less QA checks for topic comprehensiveness on our side, and the content editor, as we said, could get it right the first time. So, like, if I think of the time that it saves us on the QA checks, and with the value that MarketMuse brought to our end results, I can say that yes, it really helped us to achieve depth of content in a more time efficient way. So it really helped us all to work better, and we were all happier with the results. And when it comes to our content editor working with the tool, as I said, she really enjoyed working on it. It helped her to be an expert on the topic. She told me that the algorithm suggests terms to dive into that qualifies her as the expert. And then, as you say, she loved how she could finally quantify her success. This was not something she could do before, and she told me that she found that kind of frustrating, whereas now she could just stop working and say, well, I did a great job, I achieved my score, and I can move on. So it really does make it easier for the writer who's trying to get the right words there to figure out all those options, and then to know when she's actually done the perfect job. So
nice. Now that's great. And yeah, knowing when you have a blind spot in your research or expertise is huge, because if you didn't have that, it would remain a blind spot. And then, having that ability to say, I've done it. I've achieved the goals of this, of this outline. I've achieved the goals of this content brief. I think, the nuance there and the satisfaction. We typically will refer to that as, we're providing content confidence, because it's confidence that I've done the job the way that it needs to be done so that we can succeed. And I think basically you've described that from the feedback that she gave. So that's wonderful. Excellent. So just pivoting a bit on that is, we wanted to speak about, all of this happening and being through the, during the pandemic, during COVID-19. How did you, respond when, everything's changing so rapidly, and how is your content strategy evolving?
How did we respond? It's not been easy.
No, not for anyone. Yes.
I think initially for the company, the initial response that the company took was to listen, to pivot, to adjust its strategy. So that involves a lot of flexible planning. Mm-hmm. So in terms of content then, we react in much the same way, and this requires the same type of agile planning. But the main objective at this initial stage with the content, it's just purely to reassure our customers that we're here for them and that we are adapting quickly to their changing requirements. So then, after that, the company will begin to fine-tune its business offerings, and this is the stage that we sit back and we think a little bit more about our content going forward. So in this time, we're gaining more of an understanding of the changing landscape of our customers, their challenges and their requirements. And so due to that, then we can now plan more strategically with the content and push out content that aims primarily to give our customer valuable information, insight to really help them at this time. So I can give some examples of our services and some examples of our content.
Yeah, that'd be great. I think that, being able to, think empathetically during these times is important. And I think that's what you're kind of walking through. I'd love to know kind of a few examples of those things.
So in terms of the service, we're helping clients with a number of, with various multilingual content services. But in terms of in terms of what is really making an impact right now, that would be general crisis communications, general internal communications, e-learning content creation, remote multilingual communication, and over the phone interpretation. More specifically, a lot of our clients are in the life sciences industry, which is really changing a lot. It's really volatile, and we are helping with emergency medical translations, real-time localization, and for our pharmaceutical clients, then we're helping with, say, things like clinical translation, clinical labeling. So there's a lot going on right now, and we're making a real impact with this at the moment. In terms of the content then, our content team have been rolling out the Disruption series. So the Disruption series, it's like a series of blog posts that explores the impact of the pandemic on the healthcare industry. And it details the challenges that they are now facing in this new changed world. And most importantly, it aims to present the industry or our customers with helpful information and actionable insights. So that's just one example of a good content that we're rolling out at the moment. For me specifically, I'm focusing on optimizing then the most relevant blog posts, which could then highlight our new crisis support services.
Gotcha.
And then the second part of that question, I think you asked, how is your content strategy evolving, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so before the crisis, we had already embarked on topic cluster adoption. And so, firstly, we are now creating a new topic cluster based on the crisis response and leveraging existing content to highlight the new pages. So we're also using optimized structured data to support this approach. So firstly, it's with topic cluster adoption. And secondly, voice and FAQs. So we're continuing with voice as a channel, and really putting a big emphasis on questions and answering those questions in a useful manner, and again using structured data such as a FAQ page to support that. Thirdly, I think for me, I mean, there's also a much more focus on conversion optimizing old content. Again, I would look at content that's relevant to right now and going forward. So updating old blog posts for relevancy, improving user experiences, getting the right user experience on the page that will support the conversions. And then finally, content strategy is evolving through AI. So, when the world is slowing down, we are using AI, and that's MarketMuse, to increase our market share. And the reason why is it has had a positive impact on our traffic. So even during this crisis, we gain more value from each piece of content published. And so, yeah, for these reasons, it positions us to recover quickly in the growth phase from a business perspective.
Yeah. I mean, you've answered actually a few of the questions that we had come in already in that line. That's really fantastic. I think one thing that you mentioned was really what I referenced as content efficiency. It's every time we hit publish, we have a lot more confidence that it's going to succeed, or it's succeeding more. It's achieving more recurring traffic. It's achieving more of the goals for conversion. And that drives us to want to publish the 3 goals per week, as you described, and updating to content monitoring. During these times, like you mentioned, might even be incented to update even more because there's so much intent changing. There's so much intent changing. And trends, if you could have predicted these trends, it would be you should buy a crystal ball in these situations, because many of these trends are changing. We have clients who had hard weekday to weekend traffic patterns for the history of their entire the entire life of their site. Now Monday through Sunday are basically the same. So there's a lot of things that people couldn't have predicted, and like you mentioned, being able to adapt to those and make great decisions, really, really awesome. So excellent. Well, I think you covered a lot of the questions in there. If there's any other ones that had come in out of line, we will shoot you an email and give you some details if they're more specific. We had one that was more specific on FAQ schema, which we could get into that one for about 15 minutes. But yeah. Anything else you'd like to mention? Lionbridge.com, you can check out all of the services. Lisa mentioned many of them, but the multilingual, translation, globalization, and all of the above is quite a few. As far as MarketMuse, go check out MarketMuse Pro is our self-service offering, but we have a premium class of offerings that really gets into ways to optimize for large teams, building content briefs, even ordering content in the platform. So go check that out. There is a free offer for webinar guests through this link and available as a promo on our site. So how can everybody get in touch with you, Lisa, if they want to?
LinkedIn is good, yeah.
Okay. Lisa, thank you so much. You can reach me obviously on Twitter. I answer all DMs. I try to on that and LinkedIn. And thanks again for joining us today. It was a really great discussion of how to kind of adopt, process change, artificial intelligence, and then also apply that to adapting to the world that we are in right now. But thanks again for joining us.
Well, I want to say thanks to you for giving me this opportunity, and also for giving us this tool that has given us really great value. One thing I would like to request, or I would like, is we would like to see the tool evolve into a multi-regional tool. The content opportunity from global perspective is in the non-English languages. So yeah, we would really like to help with that, and that would be really amazing for us.
As the chief product officer, and also I manage the marketing team, I couldn't be happier to hear that. adding additional languages, you know, as you know, is not as simple as just plugging in a dictionary. So for us, we want to get that right. And I think that, teams like Lionbridge would be essential for us, making those things, more than just training a new data model. And so I really appreciate that. And I think that that is something that, we will be pursuing very, very quickly. And whether it be, Arabic, German, Spanish, Portuguese, by the way, we get those asks every day, all of the, or even double byte languages, being able to tackle them, in maths or one by one is a top priority for us. And I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Enjoy.
Thank you so much. See you.